The order exists before it is understood. It is typed, copied, stamped, and logged. Its language is precise, standardized, stripped of ambiguity. Each sentence follows a familiar structure. Each paragraph ends where doctrine expects it to end. There is nothing unusual about it, nothing that invites pause. It moves because movement is its purpose. From one desk to another, from one office to the next, it travels without friction. Paper changes hands. Signals are relayed. Acknowledgements are returned in the proper format, within the proper time. Every step is recorded. Every receipt is confirmed. The system recognizes the order as valid and therefore complete. No explanation accompanies it. None is required. Those who receive it do not ask what came before. They do not ask what may follow. They verify the reference number. They confirm the wording matches the transmission. They note the deadline. They pass it along. This is how authority sustains itself, through repetition, not persuasion. The order does not raise its voice. It does not threaten. It does not justify itself. It simply states what must be done, and by when. Somewhere, a clock is synchronized. The language is formal enough to feel distant, even to those closest to it. Terms are chosen for clarity, not empathy. Actions are described without context. Conditions are assumed to be stable. Variables are treated as fixed, because the form requires them to be. The order does not account for weather, terrain, exhaustion, or chance. These are not its concern. The system that produced it has already simplified reality into manageable components. Anything that cannot be standardized has been removed. As it moves downward, the order becomes more real, not because it changes, but because it approaches execution. Each transfer brings it closer to bodies, to machines, to time. Still, its wording remains untouched. No annotations appear in the margins. No cautions are added. No alternative is proposed. It is not debated. Debate would require discretion, and discretion would imply responsibility. The order eliminates both. There is comfort in its certainty, a clarity that leaves no room for doubt. Those who handle it know exactly what is expected of them. Receive, confirm, transmit. Nothing more, nothing less. The system rewards this precision. Compliance is efficient. Silence is interpreted as agreement. The absence of objection is recorded as readiness. The order continues. It does not hesitate as it crosses thresholds meant to filter error. Those thresholds were designed to ensure legitimacy, not wisdom. The order passes every check because it follows every rule. Its authority is unquestioned because its form is correct. By the time it reaches its final recipients, it has already been accepted dozens of times. Each acceptance reinforces the last. Each repetition strengthens its inevitability. No one remembers when it began, only that it is already in motion, and that nothing within the structure is designed to stop it now. The environment becomes visible only after the order has already settled into it. There are long corridors with hard floors that carry sound without carrying meaning, doors that open and close at prescribed intervals, lamps that burn through the night not to comfort anyone, but because visibility is a requirement. A place built to function the same way in all conditions, at all hours, with or without relief. Within it, the chain is not discussed. It is assumed, like gravity. Messages arrive in fixed formats, delivered by fixed hands, at fixed times. They are received without surprise. They are processed with the same gestures each day, checked, initialed, routed, archived. The people who do this work do not speak of it as power. They speak of it as procedure. The procedure is the power. The order travels through layers that have been made to look like accountability. Each layer adds confirmation, not judgment. Each step guarantees that the transmission is faithful, not that the instruction is sound. When the language is clear and the source is legitimate, the system treats the content as resolved. A different kind of rigor takes over here, rigor that measures correctness by adherence. There are schedules built into the structure, when to report, when to assemble, when to move. The system is a machine that runs on timed obedience. It creates predictability, and predictability is treated as safety. What cannot be predicted is considered noise. In rooms where maps are pinned flat and lines are drawn straight, reality is translated into symbols. The translation is trusted. The symbols are easier to manage than the world they represent. Once a plan has been rendered into clean edges and labeled points, it begins to feel inevitable. Orders are written to match those symbols. Clean, readable, confident. Those who receive the order are not invited into the reasoning behind it. The reasoning exists somewhere above, sealed inside a higher layer of the structure. Access is not given freely. It is granted by position, and position is granted by compliance. The system has no interest in distributing doubt. Downward, the order becomes less abstract. It becomes tasks: to prepare, to load, to assemble, to depart. It becomes quantities and timing. It becomes a list of movements coordinated across multiple units that will not see each other, but will be expected to align anyway. No one speaks the word why, not because no one has it in mind, but because the structure has already answered it with a single assumption, because it was ordered. There are established phrases for acknowledgement. They sound neutral. They sound professional. They make acceptance impersonal, almost automatic. The act of agreeing is reduced to a procedural response. The system does not demand conviction. It demands confirmation. And confirmation is easy. A message is repeated without emphasis, without interpretation. The voice that carries it is careful to keep it unchanged. That care is respected. Altering language is considered a risk. The safest version of an order is the exact one received. The chain depends on that safety. Its stability is built from identical phrases passed through countless mouths. There are people within the structure who understand the gap between paper and ground. They have seen plans come apart. They have seen forecasts fail. They have seen equipment behave differently than doctrine predicts. They have learned, quietly, to watch for the difference between what is written and what is true. But observation does not authorize alteration. The system has no formal space for informal knowledge. Experience is not a lever. It is not an instrument of influence unless it can be transformed into official language, approved through the same channels, and returned as an authorized amendment. That process takes time. The order does not allow time, so the knowledge remains where it has always been, in private thoughts, in brief glances, in pauses that never become speech. The hierarchy teaches restraint early. It teaches that initiative is not always rewarded. That deviation, even with good intent, is visible in a way compliance is not. Compliance disappears into normality. Deviation creates a record. Records are dangerous. The chain is reinforced by routine, and routine is reinforced by discipline. Discipline is praised because it produces uniform behavior. Uniform behavior allows planning. Planning allows control. Control is the essential promise of the structure, that it can impose order on conditions designed to resist it. In this promise, the institution finds its confidence. When something unexpected appears at the edge of that confidence, an inconsistency, a conflicting report, a detail that does not fit, it is handled the same way any friction is handled in a system designed for throughput. It is minimized, delayed, redirected upward, or classified as unverified. Anomalies do not halt the chain. They are processed. The order, meanwhile, continues downward with clean certainty. It does not carry hesitation with it. The system ensures that. In the final layers, the tone shifts slightly. Language becomes more immediate, not more emotional, just closer to action. The order is translated into formations, schedules, routes, signals, a sequence of steps that must occur in the correct order without improvisation. Those tasked with executing it are selected not for creativity, but for reliability. Reliability is prized because it reduces variables. The institution does not want individuals making interpretive choices. Interpretive choices create uneven outcomes. Uneven outcomes create questions, and questions travel upward. Upward movement is controlled. The chain is built to transmit instruction efficiently and absorb disturbance quietly. When a disturbance becomes undeniable, it is framed as circumstance, not design. When a doubt is raised too openly, it is framed as disruption, not warning. This is not cruelty. It is architecture. The order fits that architecture perfectly. It is written as if the world will behave, and because the system treats the order as the highest reality available, reality is expected to conform. The hierarchy does not need anyone to believe in the order as a personal truth. It only needs the order to be treated as binding. That is enough to make it operational. That is enough to make it inevitable. By the time the chain reaches the last hands, the order has become something heavier than paper. It has become the schedule others will orient around, the standard that will be enforced, the thing that cannot be questioned without questioning the structure itself. And within this structure, questioning the structure is not a recognized action. The transition from instruction to action is seamless. There is no announcement marking the shift, no verbal signal that procedure has ended and reality has begun. The same language continues, only now it is paired with movement. The order is no longer passed hand to hand. It is carried out. Preparations begin exactly when scheduled. Not early, not late. Equipment is checked according to lists that have been used countless times before. Each item is verified, not for suitability, but for presence. If it is listed, it is required. If it is required, it must be there. The checklist does not ask whether it will be enough. Timing governs everything. Movements are synchronized across distances that will never be seen in full by any single observer. Each segment operates on trust that the others will perform their part with equal precision. This trust is not personal. It is institutional. Signals are exchanged in prearranged formats. No improvisation enters the exchange. Brevity is enforced. Clarity is mandatory. Silence outside the scheduled windows is interpreted as compliance. Silence within them would be treated as failure. Those executing the order do not receive it as a suggestion. It arrives as a fixed condition. They adjust their actions around it, not the other way around. If something does not align, it is their task to realign themselves. There is no pause to reassess. Coordination unfolds as designed. Units move when told to move. They stop when told to stop. Distances are measured, intervals maintained. Every action has a corresponding reference. Deviations are not anticipated, because anticipation would imply flexibility. Flexibility is not built into the sequence. The order assumes that conditions will hold long enough for execution to complete. Communication remains formal. Even when proximity increases, voices do not rise. Familiar phrases are used to confirm progress. Each confirmation reassures the system that it is functioning. Each reassurance reduces the likelihood of interruption. Nothing in the procedure invites reconsideration. There is no step labeled "verify assumptions." There is no mechanism for feedback that would alter the order itself. Feedback is designed only to confirm execution, not to question purpose. As tasks are completed, they are reported upward in the same language they were received. This creates symmetry. The chain sees itself reflected back, intact. If something feels wrong, it remains unspoken. The procedure does not recognize feeling as data. Only measurable delay or explicit failure qualifies as information. Everything else is noise. The order demands consistency. Consistency is maintained. Movement continues according to plan. Each element performs its role without visibility of the whole. They rely on timing rather than context. Context would require explanation. Explanation would require authority. Authority has already spoken. The system does not slow as it approaches uncertainty. It accelerates, because momentum is mistaken for control. Once the sequence is underway, stopping it would require justification stronger than the order itself. No such justification exists within the structure. Reports indicate compliance. Schedules remain intact. The language used to describe progress remains neutral. There is no alarm in the words. There is no room for alarm. The order has been executed exactly as written. Nothing has interfered. Nothing has been altered. And because nothing has been altered, nothing can prevent what has already been set in motion. The first indications do not arrive as warnings. They appear as irregularities in timing, slight mismatches between expected and reported conditions. Not enough to trigger any protocol, not enough to justify delay. They are noted, recorded, and categorized as transient. The system is built to absorb minor discrepancies without changing direction. Execution continues. The order does not contain provisions for adjustment. It specifies sequence, not response. When reality begins to diverge, there is no authorized language to describe the divergence. Reports become more careful. Words are chosen to remain within acceptable parameters. Precision is preserved, even as relevance erodes. Something does not align. The structure responds by tightening its grip on procedure. Clarifications are requested, but only within the boundaries of the original instruction. The question is never whether the order should change, only whether it is being followed correctly. Compliance remains the metric. The chain does not slow. As conditions deteriorate, communication becomes more frequent, but not more informative. Updates repeat known facts in refined language. Numbers replace descriptions. Deviations are expressed as percentages. The reality they represent grows increasingly distant from the plan that produced them. Still, the order stands. Those closest to the unfolding failure recognize patterns that are not included in any manual. They see indicators that doctrine does not name, but doctrine is the only recognized authority. Experience without authorization remains inadmissible. No one interrupts the sequence. Attempts to contextualize are filtered out by format. Messages that include uncertainty are rewritten to remove it. The system prefers confidence, even if it is artificial. Artificial confidence maintains momentum. The order continues to be executed exactly as given. As coordination breaks down, the structure responds with repetition. Instructions are restated. Timelines are reaffirmed. The belief is that precision will correct deviation, that stricter adherence will restore alignment. It does not. The gap between instruction and reality widens, but the order does not acknowledge it. The system was not designed to confront contradictions. It was designed to suppress them. When confusion emerges, it is localized. Each element experiences it as an isolated problem, not a systemic one. There is no shared picture of failure, only fragments. Fragments cannot override an order. Requests for guidance move upward, but they move slowly. They are constrained by protocol. They are reviewed, reformatted, and returned as confirmations rather than revisions. The structure protects itself by refusing to admit instability. Time advances. What was once an anomaly becomes persistent. What was once dismissed becomes unavoidable. Yet the order remains unchanged. Alteration would require an admission that the original instruction was flawed. The system does not admit flaws. It corrects behavior. So behavior is corrected again and again, forced back into alignment with a plan that no longer matches the conditions it governs. Compliance becomes increasingly difficult, but difficulty is not grounds for disobedience. The sequence presses forward. By now the consequences are visible to those within reach of them. Not dramatic, not sudden, just cumulative. Losses are measured in capacity, in coordination, in options no longer available. None of these appear in the order. None are grounds for suspension. The order does not respond to consequence. It continues to demand execution, and the system, faithful to its design, continues to deliver it. What follows does not arrive as a single moment. It unfolds across intervals, across locations that no longer align, across reports that no longer describe the same reality. The collapse is not announced. It is registered. Schedules fail first, not dramatically, but incrementally. Delays compound, coordination frays. Actions meant to intersect arrive out of sequence or not at all. The system responds by enforcing timing more strictly, unaware that timing has already lost its meaning. The order remains active. Resources are consumed faster than anticipated, not because of misuse, but because the assumptions that governed their allocation were incomplete. Replacement is requested through the proper channels. The requests move upward, are logged, and are returned as acknowledgments. They do not arrive in time to matter. Nothing in the procedure allows for suspension. Loss begins to register, not as human absence, but as missing units, degraded capacity, unfulfilled objectives. The language used to describe it is technical. It avoids imagery. It avoids implication. It treats the collapse as a logistical problem rather than a structural one. Reports increase in volume. Clarity decreases. The system attempts to reassert control by narrowing focus. Commands become more specific. Margins shrink. Tolerance for deviation disappears. The order, once broad, becomes rigid in its final application. It demands completion, even as completion becomes impossible. Those executing it continue to do so because there is no alternative recognized by the structure. To stop would require authorization. Authorization would require acknowledgement. Acknowledgement would require responsibility. The chain offers none. As coordination dissolves, isolation increases. Elements lose awareness of one another. They act based on outdated information because it is the last authorized information available. The system prefers obsolete certainty to unverified truth. The failure accelerates. What was designed to function as a unified movement fragments into disconnected actions. Each fragment continues to obey the order independently, unaware that the order no longer produces coherence. Obedience persists even after purpose has vanished. The collapse is quiet. There are no speeches, no defiance, no reversal. There is only the steady execution of instructions that no longer correspond to conditions on the ground. The distance between intent and outcome becomes total. At scale, the consequences become undeniable. Objectives are not met. Positions are not held. Movements do not result in control. The order does not account for this. It was never written to evaluate itself. The structure absorbs the failure as it absorbs everything else. By recording it, numbers are finalized. Timelines are closed. The sequence ends, not because it was halted, but because there is nothing left for it to act upon. Exhaustion replaces momentum. Silence replaces coordination. The order is still valid. It simply no longer has anything to command. What remains is the aftermath of perfect compliance applied to an imperfect plan, a breakdown produced not by chaos, but by precision. And by the time the system recognizes the extent of what has occurred, recognition itself has become irrelevant. The system does not pause to examine what has happened. Once the sequence ends, the order loses visibility. It is filed, indexed, and referenced only as a completed action. Its effects are separated from its wording. Outcomes are detached from instruction. The structure treats the event as concluded because the paperwork is. Activity resumes elsewhere. Reports are consolidated into summaries that emphasize continuity. Language becomes careful again. Passive constructions dominate. Failures are described without agents. Loss is quantified without narrative. The system does not ask what the order did. It asks only whether it was executed. It was. That answer is sufficient. There are no proceedings that trace the path of the instruction from origin to consequence. The chain is too long, too diffuse. Responsibility dissolves across layers that each perform their function correctly. No single point carries enough weight to bear blame. The structure remains intact because it can demonstrate procedural compliance at every level. Silence follows, but it is an administrative silence, not a reflective one. The order is no longer circulated. It is no longer mentioned in briefings or referenced in planning sessions. New instructions take its place, written in the same language, using the same forms, stamped with the same authority. The system does not dwell on past sequences. Dwelling would imply vulnerability. Those who were present return to routine. Some roles are reassigned. Some positions are filled by others. The institution absorbs absence by redistributing function. The machine continues to operate. Lessons are implied but not articulated. Adjustments are made quietly to peripheral procedures, never to the structure itself. The architecture that produced the failure remains unchanged. It has been validated by survival. The order exists now only as a record number, a line in an archive, a completed entry. Its consequences are scattered beyond the reach of documentation, but the system does not pursue them. Its concern is continuity, not understanding. Elsewhere, another order is already moving. It follows the same path, through the same channels, in the same language, with the same certainty. The system recognizes it immediately. It processes it without hesitation. There is no indication that anything is different this time. The structure has no memory for failure, only for procedure. And so the cycle begins again, not because anyone demands it, but because nothing within the system knows how to stop it.